and welcome to Things I Know About Charleston. I'm the Charleston seersucker guy. Today, we're going to talk about how the death of a king led to the naming of the city of Charleston, South Carolina. The king in question is Charles I of England. Charles I lost his crown on January 30th, 1649, and he lost his crown because it was on his head when his head was removed from his body by the axe of an executioner. How did this happen? Well, Charles I believed in divine right. Divine right is the idea that a king rules by God's will. So basically there's God, there's the king, and then there's everybody else. Parliament and the House of Commons didn't really like the idea of divine right. So when King Charles I needed some troops to go quell a small rebellion in Scotland, Parliament said, sure, we'll do this for you if you give us these reforms. Charles I, of course, did not agree to those reforms. So instead of raising an army to help put down a rebellion in Scotland, Parliament raised an army to help oust the king. Parliamentary forces were led by a man named Oliver Cromwell. Cromwell was a Puritan, and despite having no previous military experience, he ended up being a very effective general, routing royalist troops in several battles before ultimately capturing and executing the king. Cromwell thought this was an amazing time, and he would be able to put England on the right path as he saw it. The problem was he was an effective general, but he couldn't get Parliament to do anything, and they were considered pretty useless during this time period, not really implementing any useful reforms. Meanwhile, the son of King Charles I is in France, biding his time, waiting to come back and take over the monarchy. This is eventually allowed when Cromwell dies and his son Richard takes over. Richard is even a less effective leader, and this allows the royalists to bring now Charles II back and put him on the throne. Charles II was a little vindictive. He rounded up everybody from Parliament and the House of Commons that had voted against his father, voted in favor of his execution, and he had them killed. And then, on the anniversary of his father's death, 12 years later, Charles II digs up the body of Oliver Cromwell, hangs the corpse, and then cuts his head off and has it put on a spike. He was just a little bit resentful of what had happened to his dad. Now, if you just became king and it wasn't by divine right, you have to be really good to the people who put you there. So King Charles II finds 8 men who had helped him the most, and he gave them a large land grant. Now, there's no land in England large enough for him to give out and make a difference, so he gave them land over here in the New World, and they called their land Carolina. Carolina was a little bit different than it is today. Carolina went from about the North Carolina-Virginia border down to St. Augustine in Florida, and from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. No one even knew how big that land was, but those 8 men were pretty sure they would be able to make some money from it. So these 8 men got a group of settlers together, and the settlers arrived in April of 1670. They sailed into what we call now the Charleston Harbor, up the Ashley River. They settled on the other side of the present city today, and they called it Charlestown in honor of King Charles II. And it remained Charlestown until after the Revolution. Once the Revolution was over, and we weren't really happy with anything English anymore, the city was incorporated and the name was changed from Charlestown to Charleston. And that is how Carolina and Charleston got its name. We hope you enjoyed this first episode of Things I Know About Charleston. I'm the seersucker guy. If you like this video, you can help us out a lot by clicking like and subscribe. There are more videos coming.